Have you ever, found yourself really wrestling with getting video where you want it? Like you've got this amazing 4K TV or projector, but the perfect spot for your, say, your media server or maybe your game console is just it's too far away for a normal HDMI cable.
Mhm.
Or maybe you're just staring at this mess of wires behind your setup, wishing there was a cleaner way, to get that perfect picture and sound across the room or maybe even through walls without losing quality.
Yeah, that's a super common frustration. Absolutely.
Well, today we're doing a deep dive into something that aims to fix exactly that. It's the WolfPack 4K 30 Hz HDMI extender. It's got POE, HDBaseT, and IR control built in. And our mission today isn't just to list features. We want to really unpack how it uses these pretty advanced standards like HDBaseT and POE to make complicated AV setups simpler and hopefully enhance your viewing experience. We'll cover what you need to know to really get the most out of it. And importantly, our info comes straight from the source, the product pages, the support docs for this device. So we're getting kind of an insider's look.
Right, straight from the manufacturer's details.
Okay, so let's get into it. What's the fundamental challenge here? It really boils down to the limits of HDMI cables, doesn't it? They're great short distance, but stretch them out and problems start.
Precisely. HDMI signals, they just weren't designed for really long runs.
Yeah.
They degrade, you lose quality, you might get dropouts, it gets flaky. This WolfPack extender, it basically sidesteps that whole issue. It uses standard KD6 or KD7 network cable instead, the stuff used for computer networks, which is way more flexible, usually cheaper for long runs, and much better at carrying signals over distance without loss. So fundamentally, it's a transmitter by your source and a receiver by your display that sends HDMI over a single KC6 cable using HDBaseT technology.
Okay, hold on. So instead of wrestling with a thick, maybe expensive, long HDMI cable, you're saying just run a regular network cable. That feels
Well,
simpler. What kind of distances are we actually talking about? And crucially, what quality does it manage over those distances?
yeah, it's a big difference. With this specific WolfPack unit, you can send a full 1080p HD signal, video, and audio up to about 220 feet. That's roughly 70 meters. Pretty far.
Wow, 220 feet.
And if you're pushing for high resolutions like 4K, it can handle 4K at 30 Hz up to 125 feet, which is about 40 meters. It's rated for HDMI 1.4, so it supports standard 2D and also 3D content, covering most of what people are watching.
That's a really significant jump from what you get with standard HDMI. And you said it does all this over one single network cable. What else is packed into that single connection besides the picture and sound?
All right, that's the beauty of it. It's not just video and audio. That one CCAT cable also carries bidirectional infrared signals IR. That means you can point your remote at the TV and control the source device hidden away in a closet, or vice versa. It also transmits RS-232 serial commands. Now that's maybe a bit more niche, but it's used for more advanced control systems like in professional AV or smart home setups. And a really key practical feature, power over Ethernet, or PoE. Sometimes you'll see it called POC, power over cable. It means you only need one power adapter for the whole system. You can plug it in at either the transmitter end or the receiver end, and it powers both units over the CIT cable.
Okay, that PoE part sounds incredibly useful for clean installs. We'll circle back to that. But you mentioned HDBaseT. Now here's where I think it gets really interesting. Lots of people hear that term, maybe see it on spec sheets, but what actually makes HDBaseT different from other ways of sending HD video around? Why is it so important for this extender?
HDBaseT,
Yeah.
it really is a game changer in this space. What makes it stand out, particularly compared to some, say, AV over IP solutions, is that HDBaseT provides a dedicated, uncompressed pathway for the signal. Think of it like having its own private line on the highway. Some other methods might compress the signal or introduce a tiny bit of lag, latency, because they're sharing network traffic. HDBaseT is optimized purely for high-quality video and audio. That means zero latency, which is critical for things like gaming or live presentations where any delay is noticeable and disruptive.
Zero latency. Okay, that's a big deal. So it's not just about the distance, it's about preserving the signal integrity perfectly uncompressed and using standard Ethernet cables for this dedicated path. What are the broader implications of that?
Exactly. Uncompressed quality is key. And using standard CT7 infrastructure, well, that makes installations much simpler and often cheaper. Most buildings are already wired with network cable, or it's easy to run. You don't need special proprietary expensive cables or connectors. So connecting this to the bigger picture, you get reliability, top-tier quality, and flexibility in where you place your equipment without needing custom wiring jobs.
That definitely sounds like a win for current setups. But what about looking ahead? Is HDBaseT built to handle future video standards? 8K, higher frame rates, that sort of thing?
That's a great question. And yes, HDBaseT was designed with future-proofing in mind. The standard itself has the bandwidth capacity to support higher resolutions well beyond today's 4K. It's engineered for longevity. So an investment in HDBaseT gear today should serve you well as display technology continues to advance.
Okay, good to know. Let's dive back into some of those other smart features you mentioned. Power over Ethernet, PoE. How exactly does that make life easier for someone setting this up? Can you give a practical example?
Oh, absolutely. The PoE, or POC, is maybe one of the most practical benefits for clean installs. Imagine you're mounting a TV high up on a wall, or maybe even putting a display in a spot where getting a power outlet is difficult or ugly, like above a fireplace. With PoE, you only need the network cable running to the receiver behind the TV. The power comes through that same cable from the transmitter end, which might be tucked away with your other gear where outlets are plentiful. It just eliminates one whole cable run and the need for an outlet right at the display. It makes for a much cleaner, simpler look. Less cable clutter is always good.
Definitely. Fewer wires is always the goal.
Oh, okay.
And control. You mentioned bi-directional IR and RS-232. How does that translate into a better experience day to day?
Right. Control is key. The bidirectional IR means you can use your standard remote control. Point it at your TV, and it controls the Blu-ray player or cable box hidden in a closet. Or, if your setup is reversed, you can control the TV from the source location. It travels both ways. Simple, intuitive control. RS-232, again, is more for integration. Think controlling projectors from a central system or integrating with Crestron or Control4 type setups. Robust, reliable, two-way communication. Now, there is an important point here, especially about the IR. The documentation mentioned that if you're using these extenders with a larger system like an HDMI matrix switcher, the IR control on these specific extenders is really designed for point-to-point, one source, one display. If you need to control multiple sources from multiple locations through a matrix, you typically rely on the IR capabilities built into the matrix switch itself, not just the extenders.
Ah, okay. That's a really useful clarification for more complex setups. Good to know the limitation there. Now, the specs also say this HDBaseT balloon, that's another term for the transmitter-receiver pair, right?
Yes, balloon is a common term for these types of devices.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, so this balloon also supports CEC. Now, CEC can be fantastic when it works. So lets devices talk to each other over HDMI, but it can also be a bit finicky, can't it? What should people know about the quirks of CEC?
You nailed it. CEC Consumer Electronics Control the Idea is brilliant. Your TV remote controlling your soundbar volume or turning on your whole system with one button. It allows one remote, usually the TV's, to manage up to 10 connected HDMI devices. Power on-off, volume, playback controls, potentially. The nuance, the finicky part, comes down to brand compatibility. While most big names support some form of CEC, LG calls it Simple Link. Samsung has AnyNet plus eLint. Toshiba uses CE Link. Sony has Bavia Sync. They don't always play nicely together. It's not strictly enforced that, say, a Sony TV must control a Panasonic Blu-ray player via CEC. Sometimes manufacturers limit control only to their own brand's devices. So you might find it works perfectly, or only partially, or maybe not at all between different brands. It requires a bit of trial and error sometimes.
Right, the classic your mileage may vary situation with CEC. Good to set expectations there. Okay, so we have this powerful tech, HDBaseT, PoE, IR, CEC, but getting it all working reliably hinges on proper setup. What are the absolutely essential tips, the recommendations for making sure the installation goes smoothly and performs well long term?
This is probably the most crucial part for avoiding frustration. Getting the cabling right is paramount. First, the basics. You need to use the correct cable type, CT6 or ideally CT7 for best performance and future-proofing. And absolutely stick to the TI EIA 568B wiring standard when you terminate the cables, meaning putting the RJ45 connectors on the ends. Getting the wire order correct inside the plug is non-negotiable for HDBaseT to work reliably. Sloppy terminations are a primary cause of issues.
Okay, 568B standard, got it. Any specific recommendations on the type of CT6 or CT7 cable? Does shielding matter?
Yes, it definitely can. The manufacturer strongly recommends using shielded CT6 or SOT7 cables, often abbreviated as STP, shielded twisted pair, or FTP, foiled twisted pair, and using shielded connectors, the metal RJ45 ones, to go with them. Why? To protect against EMI electromagnetic interference, things like flickering video, random dropouts. Often that's EMI from nearby power cables or appliances. Shielded cable provides an extra layer of protection against that interference, ensuring a more stable signal, especially over those longer distances. It's a detail that makes a real difference.
Shielded cable and connectors. That's a great practical tip. Okay, now what about the big don'ts? What mistakes should people absolutely avoid during setup?
Right, the warnings. Number one, straight from their support docks. Do not try to extend the distance by using things like Ethernet couplers or patch panels in the middle of the run. Don't connect two shorter CT6 cables together to make a longer one using a coupler. HDBaseT needs a single, unbroken, point-to-point cable run between the transmitter and receiver. Trying to patch it can damage the units.
Okay, no couplers, single run only. What else?
Also, double-check you're not using a crossover cable. Those look similar but are wired differently internally and are meant for specific network connections, not for extenders like these. Using one can also cause damage. And a simple troubleshooting tip they include. If you plug everything in and the power LED doesn't light up on one of the units, before you assume it's faulty, triple-check your cable terminations. Make absolutely sure the wires are in the correct 568B order and that you haven't accidentally created a crossover by mixing up pairs. 9 times out of 10, power issues are cable wiring issues.
Check the wiring first. Solid advice. Seems like attention to detail with the cable is really the key takeaway for installation. Now, shifting gears slightly, let's talk about the branding. The company, HDTV Supply, calls these WolfPack. It's quite assertive. What's the story there?
Yeah, it's definitely memorable branding. They're quite explicit about it in their materials. They describe the WolfPack line as being born from a hungry, circling pack of high-performance AV gear, designed to basically devour the competition. They want the name to evoke qualities like being sleek, fast, adaptable, able to cover long distances, and delivering powerful performance. Howling 4K is a phrase they use where others fail. So it's really a statement about wanting to be seen as aggressive on performance and capability in the market.
Howling 4K. Okay, they're certainly not shy about it. So if someone decides to join the pack, so to speak, and buy a WolfPack product, what kind of support and service does HDTV Supply offer? What backs up that aggressive branding?
They seem to put a strong emphasis on support, which is good. They specifically highlight free US-based lifetime tech support over the phone. That's a pretty significant commitment. They also mention having a dedicated tech support line and even a specific product manager for the WolfPack line that customers can apparently reach out to for special requirements. Plus the usual stuff like firmware updates, manuals, and videos are available on their website. And importantly, they state they are an HDBaseT.org approved adopter. That signals they're committed to meeting the official standards for compatibility and performance.
Lifetime US-based phone support is definitely a strong selling point. What about the buying process itself? Any notable points there?
Pretty standard e-commerce stuff, but they hit the key points. They say products are usually in stock, offer same-day shipping if ordered early enough on weekdays. They take various payment methods, including Amazon Pay and PayPal. They stress that everything is brand new, shipped securely in double boxes with insurance. There's a 30-day return policy, which is fairly standard. And they mention they can do blind shipping for installers or resellers, and that they've shipped thousands of these globally from the US. Seems like a pretty established operation.
Okay, so it sounds like a solid offering backed by significant support. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today. We've gone from the basic problem of HDMI distance limits, all the way through how this WolfPack 4K extender uses HDBaseT for that uncompressed, zero latency signal, POE for simple power, and IR and other controls, all designed to get clear signals over surprisingly long distances with hopefully minimal fuss if you follow this setup advice.
Exactly. It leverages some sophisticated tech, but the goal is actually simplification and reliability for the end user.
So hopefully, you listening now have a much clearer picture, pun intended, of how these technologies can free your HD and 4K content from short cables. It really opens up possibilities for where you place screens and sources in your home theater, your office, maybe even digital signage or educational settings, anywhere you need flexible, high-quality AV.
The flexibility is really the key benefit, I think.
Definitely. So let's end with a thought to mull over. Thinking beyond the usual TV in the living room setup, what kind of creative uses could you come up with for extending crystal clear 4K video audio and control reliably over distance? Could you maybe run a signal out to a projector in the backyard for movie nights under the stars? Or what about setting up a really unique multi-screen display for a special event, knowing the signal will be perfectly in sync thanks to zero latency? Or maybe creating that ultimate hidden media closet, all your gear tucked away, completely out of sight with just that single discrete network cable running to your main screen. Total control, seamless integration. The possibilities, it seems, might be almost as far-reaching as the signal itself.